Okay, so we may continue ourselves, and the session takes about 40 minutes, so we find ourselves it has ended. We had to renew the program, and I'm trying to admit some other members in the group so that they should not miss this important lecture for today. So what we were talking about right here is just to say about the variable that we can use in terms of running the impact. Running the impact, it will depend with how these variables are located, and if they are located in such a way that you develop a model, you can develop a model. And remember, when you use regressions, as we said, regression, it tells you about the relationship among variables, and is not specifying on whether there is causal study on there. No, it tells you about the relationship among variables between X and Y, and so that you can predict the outcome of something. If you want to predict, you can use regression to predict. It tells you how values in Y change as a function of changes in values of X. You can use it to make a prediction about tomorrow, to assess the current scenarios or the current situation and evaluate accordingly and advise the policymaker. So you simulate yourself by using the variables under estimation. Now, that is for the case of regressions. And what we say here, it attempts to determine causes of phenomena. What causes the situation? You can use it to make predictions about economic growth, road expenditure, about dispensary construction, dispensary expenditure, you see, infrastructure project of any, you see, street light, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. So all these are part of, maybe you want to predict the revenue, you can use this one to predict, you see. You can state, you can negate the theory, you can use in different approach. So with this one, when you do, you'll find yourself having the dependent variable and the independent variable. You need to know which one depend on which variable and assess the impact accordingly, just like the way it is right here. You can see the way it is right here. This is for simple linear regression. It's only when you find you have a single variable. So you can have a single variable and you can estimate, and this can be your single variable for estimation. That can be your single variable for your estimation. But in order for you to allocate this one, it will depend on how you view about the same variables. How do you view about this arrangement of the variable? What type of projects are you looking at? The national data statistics will tell you for any type of policy. So you will go within your department, you can assess and evaluate the policy within your department. If it is you are coming from town road, if you're coming from town road, you can assess the policy that you're using for road constructions and assess accordingly, but you plug them and project the trend. You can project the trend by looking at this number. So you must get the heuristic data that can be used for estimation. So you should know, you decide whether you're using regression or not, but it will depend with the question in mind. You must have a question in mind. Why have you decided to align yourself and apply and apply regression analysis. Why? So if it is regression, it can be simple linear regression, it can be or multiple regression. I think this one you discussed very much under mathematics, so I'm not going to be repetitive by this one. So you will discuss yourself, and you can apply Stata to run this one. When you apply Stata, it's very simple. So in here, what you will see when you apply Stata, it will give you something like this. You shall have the probability. You shall have the R squared. You shall have the R squared. So let me change this one right here. Let me go to the pointer. Let me get eraser. Let me erase this one. So for example, right here, this is my, I have gone somewhere and I find myself, I wanted to, sorry, let me get this one, let me get a pen. I want to assess what is the situation. I want to evaluate. This is according to my findings. So I must be capable of looking at different sensitive variables that are mathematics that are communicating to me. Because you have collected the facts, you can advise the policymakers, you can advise the government, you can use this one as part of you to assess the project. So you can apply the R squared. You know what it means by R squared. When it is 99, what are the issues around adjusted R squared? I'm not taking you to the mathematical, but I'm telling you in terms of how we can use to evaluate policy-related projects. Now, with this one, you should know which one is the dependent variable and which one is the dependent variable. So if you know which one is the dependent variable and which one is the dependent variable, you can easily understand the level of significance. The level of significance, this is the P value right here. And also it can tell you the standard errors. What is the coefficient? So for us, we shall be sensitive in terms of looking at these variables. The coefficient of that variable, whether it is positive or negative, it is telling us something is happening in that project. So because it is communicating with you, you need to know why it is positive and why it is significant in terms of p-value. So that is very important for you to assess, and you make analysis based on that one. You know, out of this regression analysis, you can find yourself producing about maybe 20 pages of findings, analyzing the scenario of this project, of what has been happening in here. So you will look at the relationship between, for example, road expenditure and economic growth, road expenditure and welfare issues, or life expectancy, or number of accidents, and so on. So with this one, you can find yourself in coming up with different analysis that at the end of the day, when you evaluate, it will give you a lesson that is something is going on about that project. Something is going on about this project. So this is when you use regressions. As I said, regressions tells you about the relationship among variables. Relationship among variables, so you can measure the level of significance, you can accept, you can reject, you can evaluate, you can say these are good policies that can be replicated somewhere, or we can drop it for now and we introduce new one. So this is also a very important thing for you to consider when you are talking about that one. So for impact, we are focusing at the Granger causality. So Granger causality is to assess whether X causes Y or Y causes X, or both variables, they cause one another to change. So I'm speaking from simple language so that you should understand. So you can use Granger causality to predict the variables, that these variables, they move together. This variable has significantly improved the performance of this one. This is when you use Granger causality. Of course, it was developed by someone called Granger. And so most of the time when you use Granger, it means you are trying to measure the impact on the changes about the variables. So here you are focusing at impact of something. What is the impact of this one in relation to that one? So this is, you apply Granger causality, because not every study and evaluation you can find yourself using regression. You can find Granger can be useful for you to assess the policy impact to the people, because people need to be well informed, and policymakers need to be well informed about whether what they are doing is scientifically right or not. So you engage yourself into evaluation. You can evaluate and advise accordingly. So when you use the Granger causality, you'll find yourself determining the impact of something. Are we together, class? Am I speaking by myself?
Yeah, we are together.
Okay, so
yes, we are together.
Yes, so you can find yourself using Granger, and the Granger will tell you the situation, whether if X causes Y, there are two conditions to be satisfied. X can help in predicting Y. Regression of X and Y has a big R squared, of course. Y cannot help in predicting X, and so on. So you need to know what is Granger causality and how can it help you to determine the impact of the variables, the impact of the variables in that project, because every project has variables. So we are so much interested in getting those variables and to determine the causality. When you use the causality, it means you are trying to evaluate the project. At the end of the day, we can say it has attained highest level. They support one another. Then you can advise the policymakers. They can replicate the same results somewhere else. And as I said, I don't want to get deeper in the number because some of you will be escaping from now, but you need to know Granger causality. You can use your so-called starter to determine the Granger causality and help you measure very well about whether this is significant or not significant. And remember, as I said, this was developed by someone called Granger in 1969. But when you look at its number, you find out that the computation and derivation of itself, some of you will be running, but we can use the computer. We can use the computer to determine the Granger causality and make analysis. And it is where now you find yourself applying the so-called the VAL, vector autoregressive regressive model. You can find yourself applying that one, and you'll find it is useful. Of course, you should not be running away from this. And when we use computer, it is especially Starter. Starter is very good software that you need to know, someone who is about to undertake the study. So this is very important. Class, are we together? Are we
Yes,
together,
sir.
please? Yes. So that is what I wanted to
Yes, sir.
you. But now, what you will see, there are issues that if I go deeper, some of you will be running. So most of the time, you can find yourself when you run the so-called starter, you'll come across with VAL. This is the vector autoregressive. It will tell you about, before you go to Granger causality, you need to know all those kind of things. These are normal mathematics that will assist you to examine the variables and the directions. And also, I think you have already discussed, and you need to know the VECM model. Okay, with this one, vector error correction model, it means you will need to see what is the impact, what in terms of long run, short run impact, you need to assess with this one. And so you apply your vectors to measure the variable so that you can estimate the speed of change of that variable towards the targets, So you can apply that one. But again, it is easier for you when you compute by using Starter. You can compute this one within 5 minutes. You have all your findings and you start making your analysis. You can determine the short run and long run and so on. You can determine the short run, what we say here, the short run, or long run. So with this one, what you will see is for policy changes. What will be the policy impact, or what has happened? You can determine the long run relationship and the short run relationship among those variables, so that you advise the policymakers that this scenario will only happen in the short run. So what you need to do for now, these are based on the evaluation, these are things that you think you can use. So you can apply your value to measure all those kind of things. Any question? Any question? Any question, class? Any question? Bryson?
No questions.
Bryson, do you have any question?
No question, sir.
Ezekiel, any question? Okay, so what I should say for today, this is the session for today. I have sent you out another lecture. You can read by yourself. I think read by yourself and prepare yourself for the exam, for the test. I will send you the last version. I will also send you by next week. When should we do our test, Chairperson? Chairperson? Okay, so next week we do our test, and our test is going to be on Monday. Is that okay?
Sir, Monday, the day after this weekend.
I must, yes, it should be Monday. Let's make on Wednesday. We do our test, okay?
Sir, maybe Friday. Can you do it on Friday?
Friday, we shall be doing first account. And on Wednesday, we do monitoring and evaluation, okay?
Sir,
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, doctor. I think we can do on Saturday because at least that is a day which is free. So we do first account.
When you agree, because some of you don't work on Saturday. When you agree, you let me know. But next week, between Wednesday and Friday, we can do our test, okay?
Okay, sir.
You agree. I suggest you agree first. I don't want anybody to miss because we shall not be having another test. I will send you some review questions.
Okay, sir, just to be clear.
I will send you some review questions for yourself that will help you for the test and the final.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.